Hey friends, before we begin, I just want to give you one thing that you can take away if you just listen to the first maybe 5 minutes or less of this episode. There's something that you can take away and apply to your life. I guess just to introduce you, this is A Beautiful Mess, where we talk about tools and tactics to improve your life. And I'm so glad you're here with me. Basically, life can be messy. And as an artist, as a creative person, it's how do you find the beauty, the joy, and, how do you live a meaningful life amidst the messiness and the craziness of life? So that's what this podcast is about. So if that's what you're about, you're in the right place, and I want to welcome you to it. So the first takeaway that hopefully this will become a normal thing, but the first takeaway that I want to give you is how to store your files. And there's one thing that you can take advantage if you are an Amazon Prime member as of 2020, March 16th, unless they changed it just 5 minutes ago. You should be able to take advantage of this. They have unlimited storage for your photos. So if you have Amazon Prime and you haven't been taking advantage of this, I highly recommend you take advantage of what they already give you, which is unlimited storage. So, and I think I remember seeing a video on their page where they talk about an example of somebody that was a photographer and they lost all their files, like their hard drive, I think, got corrupted. And if you know what it's like getting a hard drive corrupted, it's happened to me before. It is the worst feeling, and you just have to accept it. It's like, they're gone. There's no way really, unless I'm willing to spend maybe tons of money for someone to recover those files. And there's some things that you can try on your own, and I can talk about that later. But basically, once there's something corrupted and you lose it, it's never fun. So they had lost their files, and then they realized that it was all backed up thanks to Amazon Photos. And so I highly recommend just install this on your phone, install this on your computer, and set it up to automatically back up your files, so you don't have to think about it. And so that's what I have set up on my phone and on my computer. And you can specify even drives, and I'm pretty sure most raw files. So if you are a photographer, this is a great way. I know, most professional photographers, you should have another way of backing up your photos. I wouldn't necessarily trust this to, back up your most important stuff. But at the same time, maybe a little bit of a redundancy, have that one extra thing that if something were to get lost, let's say that hard drive, that SD card, something goes wrong with it, you have a backup in the cloud. So that's my little takeaway. If you're looking for it, take advantage of that. I highly recommend it. It's been a great resource. And then the other fun thing is if you've got Amazon Fire Stick or other Amazon products, they basically take those photos and then they display it. So we've got the Fire Stick, and it's always fun. The kids enjoy seeing pictures of the family. They just kind of go back and you can see the date that they were taken and kind of just relive those memories, because let's be real, there's a lot of times you take pictures and you never see them again. They never see the light of the day. They might stay on a hard drive. Maybe once in a while, they'll pop up on your news feed if you posted them on social media. But let's be honest, most of the time, they just get lost in the ether of data. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, because I've been trying to look for a solution. I've recently I'm hitting the limits on my hard drives that I have readily available to me. So I have an old clunking hard drive, and if you want to watch a video that I made about hard drives, I have the SSD video on my YouTube channel. You can search Paul Dittus SSDs, and it'll probably be up there. And so I made a video, and you can see the SSDs and the regular hard drive. So I had this regular hard drive that had fans and power, and it was big and heavy. I don't recommend, unless you're looking for something that's stationary, and you're not going to move around, you can do that. But honestly, the more I think about it, the smaller something is, the more portable, the better. So we're going to talk about various solutions to back up your data. First of all, why should you even consider backing up your data? So if, for example, you're a professional photographer, creator, obviously you're taking videos, you're taking photos, and you need a way to back up those important files and data just in case you ever have to go back to it, or if something happens to the original. It's always good to have something somewhere. What about just the ordinary, person who takes, the photos on the phone? Maybe they, have files on their computer that they don't know how to back up. So this will be some of the things that we talk about, is how to preserve your data, especially the most important data, because like I said, it's very possible that your hard drive fails, that your computer fails, and it's a terrible feeling if you don't have it backed up. So, there's a lot to talk about, but let's start off with a method that's like kind of what the government talks about, what like research has said is a good way to do things. I mean, I personally haven't quite gotten to this point yet, more or less depending on what it is, but what they recommend is a 3-2-1 storage solution. So 3-2-1, just remember 3-2-1 and you'll remember this. So basically three data, like places that you store your data. So there's 3 places. 2 of those are on site. So maybe you have 2 different hard drives that are storing the same information. Maybe one's locked up in a closet. Maybe one's plugged in all the time. That way you have those, if one drive fails, then you have the other one to fall back. And then the one is one hard drive or data stored off site. So like, for example, if your house flooded or if, a fire happens, then you're not worried about your data just going bye-bye, see you later. So that's always good to have multiple points of backing up your data. That way you don't have to worry about if something goes wrong. And then you can get into all different ways of backing up your data. Obviously, you have your computer. That's great. Your computer's a great way. And when you have Mac, you have things like Time Machine that backs up your data to your computer. So that's always a good thing if you have backups. So if your computer ever goes, crashes. However, this is one thing that I'll recommend, and feel free to take it, leave it, maybe just do some research yourself. But I recommend, if you have very important files that you need to keep safe, I would recommend going ahead and just store that on a cloud so that, let's say something happens, it's already, in a different location. Granted, there's things that could happen in the cloud. So maybe those very important files, let's be real, maybe it's like your tax documents, maybe it's your, bank, like certain important documents that you just need to keep around. It's probably like mostly PDFs, so it's not going to take up a lot of space, but you might want to back up that maybe with a 3-2-1, maybe you're selective about what you decide is that 3-2-1 process, but that might be one to do it with. And then what you can do is there's different ways of storing it outside of your computer. Obviously, that's one way that you're probably already using. You have your desktop, maybe it's clutter with all the icons. I don't like clutter on my desktop. I like to keep it as clean as possible whenever I can. But hey, you do whatever works for you. And then some people have tons of, things in their documents folder, you name it. So you have your computer, and then you have drives, like hard drives that you keep. Maybe you have some still sticking around. Like the average lifespan of a hard drive isn't actually terribly long, like considering everything. I think typically speaking, maybe it's about 5 years, give or take. You can look it up, but maybe about 5 years. So like that's not terribly long. So if you have a hard drive that you've been hanging on to, or maybe your own computer's hard drive, it could fail. So one thing to keep in mind is the difference between disk drives with a spinning disk inside of it which has like more mechanics involved, and then the solid state hard drive, the SSDs. Those two are like the main types of drives that you have. So the traditional hard disk with the spinning disk, those I would say are less, a little bit more prone to have like, things that could happen to them because they have a spinning disk and, things happen. So if I had a choice between the two, I would personally go with SSDs. They're just small, they're sleek. You don't really have to worry too much about them because like a lot of times they have even protection. Like there's different ones that have protection. Like if you drop it, don't test it if you don't have to. But so you have SSDs, hard drives. The thing about SSDs versus hard drives is like if you're going for the maximum storage for the least expensive, go with traditional hard drives. If you're looking for the faster drives, the more, I would say, durable. It depends who you ask, but like basically the more durable drive, I would highly recommend SSDs. Personally, SSDs are the best, especially if you're a video editor and you need something that's fast, streamlined, go with an SSD. And then beyond your computer, your hard drives, you have these things called NAS, network attached storage. And so this is like getting a little bit more advanced. This is basically like almost running your own file server. So, or RAID. You basically plug this drive, which has its own, like, it's basically a computer with hard drives, and you plug it into your network. And then basically you can set it up so you can access those files no matter where you are in the world, which is great. So like if you're maybe editing a project in, another state, another country, and you need to access like a file or two from an older project, you can go access your NAS back home and grab the files that you need and download them. So that's like a great backup solution. I haven't personally used it yet, but that's something that I've definitely considered since, like I said, my two main hard drives are filling up. However, probably a more cost-effective way to store your files when you're first starting out, maybe you're a content creator and you got files building up, would probably be to just buy like a large, either disk drive or SSD that can hold all the files that you need. You can usually pick up like a 16 terabyte drive that should last you for a while. Fairly cheap. Depends how you define cheap, maybe $200, $300, which for 14 to 16 terabytes is amazing. Think back in the day with floppy disks, like that would be insane to get that much space for that price. So yeah, that's always a good thing. And then cloud storage. Obviously, cloud storage is probably something that you already use to some degree. If you're using Google Drive, OneDrive, if you're using Dropbox, box.com, there's a bunch of different options out there. So one word about Google Drive is, unfortunately, and this is something to keep in mind whenever you take advantage of a free service. So asterisk on the Amazon photos, Google had offered basically unlimited storage. I think it was even for video, but video and photos to people that had like a Gmail account, a Google account. And so basically, and I think it was like a certain quality that they allowed, but basically unlimited. So, people loaded it up, and then all of a sudden, I think a year or so ago, they decided no longer. We're not going to support the drive anymore. So you're going to have to, figure out a solution going forward. So that was a little bit frustrating for someone that maybe trying to be a little bit more frugal and like didn't want to pay for, storing their photos, and they use Google as a backup system. All of a sudden had to rethink, maybe go to Amazon Photos. Who knows? But that's something to keep in mind, is like something that's free Is it really free? And in the end, will it be more frustrating if you end up having to sign up for something down the road? So I actually have a feeling that down the road, I'll end up getting unlimited storage, which, I mean, granted, is there really unlimited storage? There was a funny video, one of the YouTubers, Linus Tech Tips, I love his videos, but Linus had this one thing where basically Google G Suite at the time, now it's Google Workspace, but G Suite at the time offered basically unlimited storage if I think you had like 5 users on one of their plans. And so they decided to test the unlimited storage. And basically the only caveat was that you only could upload 750 gigabytes every day. So they uploaded tons and tons of data, and were able to set their upload so that it wouldn't go past the 750 gigabytes. But basically they found, they were able to upload it. So there are some solutions like that. I think Dropbox offers unlimited if you do something similar where you maybe pay about $60 for a couple users, they'll give you unlimited storage. But you also have to keep in mind the restrictions involved. Like some people only allow you to transfer a certain amount of data, or upload certain file sizes. So there are some restrictions to be aware of, especially if you're in the content creation world where you're dealing with large files. If you're just doing personal, you probably don't have to worry about it at all because most of that's just, it's built for basic everyday use. Not going to be a problem. So services that I'd recommend checking out for cloud is Google Drive. I mean, who doesn't love Google? Although I will say that I've had some issues with Google Drive using it with programs like I think Keynote, basically I think even Photoshop, some of the creative products. Granted, if you go to Adobe, I think they say like it's not meant to be used with that kind of cloud. They probably want to have you use their cloud, the Adobe Creative Cloud. But so like when you're looking for a place to store your data, look for something that you trust, obviously. Like if you feel like, because there's tons of websites that offer to host your data, but like if it's important to you, take the time to really research it. I'm going to recommend some, but like do your own research. I don't want you to choose one and then come back and say like, hey, I lost all my information. So Dropbox I've used, I love it. It's great. And then Google Drive, obviously. And some of these have like free versions that for the most part, that's all you'll need. If you're not doing anything crazy, you might be fine with one of the free versions. So, and then you have OneDrive by Microsoft. I haven't really used that one too much. It's all right. Box, I think they give you about 10 gigabytes for free. So that's like a nice one. Although I think they have further restrictions on what you can like transfer in and out. But for the most part, yeah, those are some great options. There's plenty others out there. And this is another, so like there's a slight difference between cloud storage and cloud backup. So like your regular cloud storage is like stuff that you can, easily access from anywhere. You can share links to it. You can, sync it with your computer. And then cloud backup is often a cheaper way to back up your data, maybe on your drives, maybe on your NAS. So for example, Amazon, they offer their S3 server space, which is a cheap way to like store your data with the servers. It's a little bit more complicated, so I don't recommend checking it out if you're just looking for something simple that's not simple. And then you have something like Backblaze. Backblaze, I'd highly recommend checking out if you're just looking for something to store your data, like just in case something goes wrong. Because basically you pay, a reasonable amount. I think it's right now it's about $7 a month, and their yearly is a little bit less than that. And then you can get 2 years, and that's a little bit less. But I mean, for $7, basically you get unlimited backups for your computer and any of your drives that you attach to it. So like the only caveat is like, if you have drives in another room, you have to basically plug them in every single time that you want to make sure that they're backed up. And I think they have like a window of 30 days. So every 30 days, you just have to make sure you plug them in to make sure that it's backing it up. Basically, it scans through, I think, and just sees what's there and what's not there. So that's one option I'm actually looking at. At some point, again, I think I'll go with unlimited cloud storage. But yeah. Those are some great options. Curious what if you've thought about storing your files, and also file systems, like how to organize things. I'll tell you real quick. One of the things that I do. Feel free to do however you want. Like basically, you have to make it work for you. So what works for me might not work for you. But what I typically do is I have, for like my personal home files and like other important documents, I have a filing cabinet folder. And then within that, I have like each year. So I can quickly go and like select a year. And I'm like, I knew I did something in this year. Maybe I made an important purchase, and I have the receipt in there. So I can quickly go to the year. And then within the year, I have like the different categories. So maybe there's a work category. Maybe there's a health category. Maybe there's a purchases category, business. You can kind of break it up, and that way, if you're looking for something, it makes it a little bit easier. You're like, okay, I know it's this year. Go to that folder, find it. Another way is obviously you can do it categorically, but that might get a little bit messier. It just depends how you like to do things. Another thing I'll recommend is get yourself a scanner so that you can kind of reduce paper clutter. Maybe I'll have to make a whole episode on reducing, clutter, paper clutter, digital minimalism. But there's some great software that you can get where basically you just scan everything and it like automatically reads the page, so that if you need to find, like it basically finds all the text, and so it makes it searchable. So the next time you need it, you can just open up your search on your File Explorer and just find maybe even within the document that text. So it's amazing what technology you can do. So yeah, I mean, my takeaway for you is find a solution for your data. Like maybe spend some time this week, to think about how you can store your data better, so that you're not like running around with your head cut off, trying to figure out where everything's stored. Maybe think about consolidating, creating a system that works for you. Maybe you buy a new hard drive and you back up what you have, and maybe you invest in a cloud storage or use a free one. That way you feel that sense of like, okay, if something goes wrong, I've got it. And in the end, if something does go wrong, it's kind of like, it's painful as anything, but you live and you learn. Hey, we've nearly talked for a half an hour about hard drives. Hopefully you haven't been put to sleep quite yet. But well, thanks so much for listening. Real quick, I want to read this amazing note that I got on the YouTube from a listener. Let me see if I can find this. Let's see here. So this is from Navneet. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So he said, in previous 2 years, I have consumed so much information. And by the way, this is a reply to a YouTube video of the podcast, Information Overload and What It Does to Your Brain. And so he says, in previous 2 years, I have consumed so much information without knowing the fact that it is really important for me or not. Now, when I sit alone to analyze myself, I become restless and feels like my thinking has been gone. I realized that all these things happen due to that I wasn't aware of my life for 2 years. Some day ago, I got to know about this thing, information overload, by Daniel Levitin, author of the book, The Organized Mind. I would say I have wasted my dopamine into the screen for a few years that should have used into the real life problem, which makes me stronger in the real manner. Love your content. Keep it up. Well, thanks, Navid. I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work. I know what you mean. It's like you can kind of get sucked into like consuming content and you don't realize like what it's doing to yourself. Like, so like I'm like this is what this podcast is all about, is living the meaningful life and hopefully talking about things that'll help you improve your day-to-day, make your life 1% better. So thanks so much for being part of the Messy Fam. If you want to be part of the Messy Fam, I'd love to have you. Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, all that fun stuff. We're on YouTube, Spotify, all the places. Find us. Find me. DM me. I'd love to hear from you. Well, thanks so much, friends. Till next time, stay messy.